The mountains rose like jagged teeth against a sky streaked with a fading glow of twin suns. The air was thin, sharp, and heavy with dust, carrying the faint metallic tang of old battles fought on this world long before the Galactic Coalition claimed it. On a ridge overlooking a scarred valley, rows of armored soldiers prepared for another engagement, their laughter echoing off the rocks. They were a mixed attachment of species from across the stars. Towering reptilian warriors with scale-plated hides, insectoid soldiers chittering in amusement, and smooth-shelled amphibians who adjusted their rifles with casual arrogance. To them, this was routine, another exercise in flexing their dominance over a primitive people. At the center of their derision stood a solitary human. He was lean, silent, and draped in mottled camouflage that blended into the stones. His rifle rested against his shoulder, a simple, old-fashioned weapon by galactic standards. The aliens crowded around him found the sight comical. Their own armaments hummed with plasma cores and precision tracking arrays, while his weapon looked like a relic from forgotten age, wood, steel, and a scope made of glass. A reptilian soldier jabbed a clawed finger at it, laughing so hard his scaled shoulders shook. That toy is what humans bring to war. Another spat, clicking his mandibles. He'd be better off throwing rocks. At least they bounce. The human didn't respond. His eyes, pale and steady, scanned the ridges ahead as though the taunts had dissolved into nothingness. He had heard this kind of mockery before. Every alien soldier believed themselves untouchable inside their radiant shields and alloyed exosuits. They measured superiority in firepower and machinery, never in patience, never in silence. He didn't need to prove them wrong with words. The mountains would speak for him soon enough. The commander of the detachment, a broad amphibian encased in reinforced plating, stepped forward with a sneer stretching across his rubbery mouth. You humans cling to antiques. Look at him. He carries a stick with a tube on top, and you expect us to treat him as an equal? His soldiers roared with laughter, the sound ricocheting like mock applause. The commander raised his rifle, a gleaming weapon that vibrated faintly with stored energy, and pointed it toward the distant ridges. Our scanners see everything. No one can hide from us. Your kind should have stayed in the dirt where we found you. Still the sniper remained quiet, his gloved hand resting against the bolt of his rifle. His heartbeat was steady, unhurried. For every insult tossed his way, a calculation was already being drawn in his mind. Distances, angles, wind currents threading between the rocks. He could feel the planet itself, hear the subtle whistle of air funneling through canyons, smell the faint ozone where plasma had scarred the stone. To him, the world was not hostile. It was an ally, and it whispered secrets that no scanner could capture. The aliens mistook silence for weakness. They couldn't imagine that stillness was preparation. That patience was sharper than any blade. As they laughed, he adjusted his scope by the barest fraction, testing focus against a distant cliff. The glimmer of a shield shimmered on one of their forward positions, proof that their arrogance was already blinding them. Shield emitters had weak points, seams where light refracted imperfectly. They thought themselves untouchable because machines told them so. Machines, however, didn't account for instinct. Machines didn't feel the moment when wind dipped just right or when a target's breath slowed before a careless step. The reptilian who had laughed first slung his plasma rifle across his shoulder and leaned down toward the human, his yellow eyes gleaming with contempt. Tell me, little Earthman, how many of us do you think you can kill with that antique? 1, 2 before we cut you in half. He barked another laugh, joined by his comrades. The sniper finally met his gaze. His expression didn't shift, but there was something unnerving in his eyes, a kind of quiet depth that unsettled even the alien for a fraction of a second. It was the look of a predator, one who had no need to boast. Their laughter grew louder, their mockery more brazen, but to the sniper it was already fading, distant, irrelevant noise. His focus tunneled outward into the valley. He pictured his firing positions, the angles where cover melted seamlessly into shadows, the escape routes if he needed to vanish. The rifle against his shoulder was no relic. It was an extension of his body, tuned so precisely that he could feel every shift in balance. He had chosen this weapon because it whispered where there screamed. In the mountains, silence killed louder than any barrage. The alien commander waved his hand in dismissal. Enough entertainment. When the battle begins, we'll sweep this place clean. Let the human play with his toy. Maybe it will give him courage before he dies. The squad broke into another round of mocking laughter, their armor boots grinding against the stone as they prepared to move out. The sniper did not watch them. He lowered into a crouch, slid into the crevice of rock he had been eyeing since their arrival, and steadied himself. His breathing slowed to a rhythm indistinguishable from the wind sigh. The world around him sharpened. The tremor of a loose pebble under an alien boot, the faint distortion of heat shimmering above a shield emitter, the echo of distant footfalls carrying across stone. Every detail was a thread in the web he was weaving, and soon those who laughed would find themselves ensnared. A chill silence settled over the valley, broken only by the metallic shuffle of alien armor. They were too loud, too confident, too certain that dominance was written into their blood. They didn't notice how quickly the human melted into the terrain, how invisible he became once stillness swallowed him whole. They didn't realize that by mocking him, they had made themselves blind to the danger already unfolding. The sniper's finger brushed against the trigger guard, not pressing yet, only reminding himself of the moment waiting ahead. In his scope, a distant figure sharpened into clarity, the faint glow of a shield humming with false security. He adjusted for wind, for distance, for the tilt of the sun's last light against the barrel. Patience was everything. Timing was everything. The aliens, still laughing, began their march into the valley below. Their voices carried upward, jeering, mocking, calling him stone thrower and cave rat. But the sniper's focus was locked, unwavering. Each heartbeat narrowed his vision to the inevitability of the first shot. The last echo of laughter faded against the stone as he let his breathing settle. His rifle aligned perfectly with destiny. One more moment, one more heartbeat, and the silence would break. And when it did, the mockery would end forever. The shot cracked like thunder across the valley, sharp and final. For a moment, none of the galactic soldiers understood what had happened. A reptilian warrior who had been boasting the loudest froze mid-step. A neat hole punched through the visor of his helmet. He toppled backward in silence, his armored body hitting the rock with a hollow thud. Laughter evaporated. Confusion replaced arrogance. The soldiers whip around, scanning the ridges, their eyes wide with disbelief. Another heartbeat passed, then panic struck. Shouts filled the canyon, each species barking in its own tongue, overlapping commands turning into chaos. Shields up. Shields now, someone bellowed, but the second shot came before the order finished. This time a lean insectoid, its carapace gleaming with iridescence, jerked violently as a bullet shattered the joint between its neck and thorax. The body spasm collapsed and twitched before going still. Soldiers stumbled back, their composure breaking into raw fear. The commander roared above the din, trying to regain order, but his words carried less weight than the echo of gunfire. Find him. Find the human, he demanded. Drones lifted off, wings buzzing with high-frequency scans, beams of light fanning across the rocks. Yet they detected nothing. The sniper had already shifted positions, moving with a predator's instinct, leaving only silence where he had been moments before. The coalition soldiers cursed in disbelief. Their technology could detect heat signatures through walls, track bioelectric fields through meters of stone. Yet it couldn't see the ghost now stalking them. The human had learned to erase himself, to become part of the terrain. Every movement he made was deliberate, slow enough to go unnoticed by the machines they relied on so blindly. Another shot ripped through the silence, and the commander's second-in-command dropped with a hole through the side of his head. Panic spiked. Soldiers dug for cover, pressing their backs against rocks, their confidence shattered. "It's just one," an amphibian soldier shouted, voice cracking. One with a relic. Yet his voice trembled, because even as he spoke, he knew the truth. No machine, no armor, no doctrine had prepared them for this. The sniper's rhythm was relentless but measured. He did not fire rapidly. Each pull of the trigger was chosen, purposeful, aimed at the most vulnerable point. He knew their armor, knew where the seams lay, knew where alien biology bent or broke. A scale-thick reptilian skull fractured under a single bullet precisely angled. A drone operator collapsed, His chest plate cracked exactly where its power core met the plating. The sniper's world was nothing but targets, and he carved through them with unerring patience. Terror began to seep deeper than the armor could shield. Soldiers whispered among themselves, their languages filled with desperation. Some spoke of ghosts, others of demons. A word spread between them. Hunter. They had mocked his weapon, his species, his silence. Now each alien heart raced with the dreadful realization that the one they ridiculed was something far older and far deadlier than they had understood. He wasn't fighting them like soldiers. He was stalking them like prey. The commander tried again to rally his troops. We are the coalition. One human cannot break us. His voice carried over the cliffs. But even as he shouted, a crack split the air and one of his guards crumpled beside him. The commander staggered back, fury bleeding into fear. His speech faltered. His soldiers were no longer listening to him. They were listening to the silence between the gunshots, waiting for the next sound of death. In the sniper's scope, faces shifted in and out of focus, each framed against stone or shield glow. He measured breaths, accounted for the erratic gusts of wind. He adjusted with the patience of someone who understood that time was his ally. The aliens were rushing, panicking, making themselves louder, more visible. He didn't need to hurry. Each target would present itself. Each would fall when the moment was right. The battlefield that had once belonged to the coalition was no longer theirs. They had walked into a place where their superiority meant nothing. Their plasma rifles hissed as they fired blindly into the ridges, burning holes in rock, but they were shooting at shadows. Their advanced helmets pinged with alerts, but each scan only returned noise. The human wasn't a blip on their radar. He was absence itself. One insectoid soldier broke from cover, sprinting across the open ground in a desperate bid for a new position. His legs carried him fast, faster than most species could run, but speed only made him easier to track. A single bullet pierced through his back, cutting the sprint into a collapse mid-stride. The others froze at the sight, unwilling to move, paralyzed by the invisible eyes that watched them from somewhere they could not see. The sniper shifted again, sliding deeper into the rocks. His breathing stayed calm, each inhale shallow and controlled, each exhale carrying the faintest whisper of focus. He did not savor the kills, nor revel in their fear. This was simply work, the execution of training honed into instinct. The aliens had entered his arena, and in his arena there was no room for arrogance. The coalition soldiers began to fracture, some arguing to retreat, others too proud to admit defeat. The commander shouted for them to hold formation, but even as he did, another shot rang out and one more of his men fell without warning. Unity was dissolving. The once proud squad of interstellar warriors had been reduced to a cluster of trembling figures crouched behind rocks, waiting for death. They could not understand the silence. In their wars, noise was everything. The hum of engines, the roar of plasma fire, the storm of artillery. But the human had weaponized absence. He gave them nothing to react to, no sound, no trace, until the precise moment he chose to end a life. The commander's voice grew ragged with desperation. Find him. He cannot be invisible. Yet even he no longer believed it. His words shook, and his eyes darted nervously to the ridges above. The myth was already forming in his mind, that humans were not soldiers or predators, creatures born from a planet that had sharpened them against impossible odds. He remembered the quiet gaze of the sniper earlier, that unnerving stillness, and shivered despite his armor. From his vantage point, the sniper studied Commander through the scope. He could end it now, one clean shot to the throat, but patience urged restraint. Leaders were valuable when they panicked. Leaders screamed louder, ordered more frantically, made their soldiers expose themselves in desperation. The sniper waited, finger brushing the trigger, eyes never blinking. Below, the squad huddled tighter, each soldier listening for a sound they could not predict. The silence pressed heavier than the mountain itself, suffocating, relentless. Their breaths came too fast, their movements too frantic. They had walked into this valley laughing, but laughter was gone. What remained was dread, thick as smoke, wrapping around each of them until every shadow seemed a threat. The sniper's next shot would not just take another life. It would unravel the last thread of their courage. And as he steadied his aim, The question no longer lingered over whether they could find him. The only question was how many would still be alive when the kill shots ended. The valley had become a graveyard of echoes. Shattered armor and scorched stone marked every place where arrogance had met silence. Smoke curled upward from stray plasma blasts that had struck only rock, never their target. The survivors huddled in scattered pockets, afraid to move, afraid to speak above a whisper. The once proud detachment of the Galactic Coalition was no longer an army, but prey clinging to cover, trembling in the knowledge that they were being hunted by one man. The commander's resolve cracked under the weight of each loss. He barked orders into his comms, but the words came back only as silence. The drones were gone, their operators dead, their signals severed. His soldiers stared at him with wide, frightened eyes, their confidence broken, their loyalty thinning by the minute. The human sniper hadn't just thinned their numbers. He had shattered the illusion of their superiority. And worse, he hadn't even revealed himself. The unseen threat was worse than any direct confrontation. In the rocks above, the sniper studied the chaos through a scope. His breathing remained slow, even unshaken. The faces in his crosshairs shifted. An insectoid crouched too close to the edge of a boulder, an amphibian nervously scanning the ridges, the commander trying and failing to project authority. Each was a possibility, but the sniper didn't rush. He had learned long ago that war wasn't about who fired fastest, but who fired last. The coalition soldiers grew desperate. Plasma bolts hissed upward in blind arcs, searing the air with heat, gouging the mountainside in bursts of molten stone. The light show might have looked impressive to them, but to the sniper it was nothing but waste. Screams of fear dressed as firepower. He shifted from one crevice to another, every move precise, deliberate. The dust clung to his uniform, masking his scent, dulling the heat signature of his body. To the alien sensors, he was nothing. To the soldiers, he was everywhere. Finally, the commander's patience broke. "He cannot kill us all," he growled, stepping from cover, his plasma rifle held tight. "He hides like a coward. I will end this myself." His soldiers tried to protest, but their voices faltered. Fear had made them mute. The commander surged forward, his armored boots pounding the rock, each step meant to challenge the silence, to prove he was unafraid. He leveled his weapon toward the cliffs, sweeping it across the shadows. The sniper followed him through the scope, the crosshairs tracing the alien's movements. He could have ended it there, one breath, one trigger squeeze, and the commander would fall. But the sniper held back. Leaders were useful until their arrogance brought them into the open fully. Patience would yield the cleaner kill. The commander roared a challenge, his voice echoing off stone. "Human, show yourself. Face me like a warrior, not a ghost." His soldiers stirred, some finding a flicker of courage in his defiance, others only shrinking further into cover. The silence that followed was unbearable, thick and suffocating. Then the sniper's answer came, not in words, but in another shot. A plasma rifle flew from an amphibian's hands as a bullet pierced its power cell, exploding in a burst of fire that flung the soldier across the rocks. The commander flinched. The illusion of control slipped further from his grasp. Still he pushed forward, firing wild bursts into the ridges, his weapon screaming against the stone. Sparks lit the cliffs where plasma struck, but the sniper had already moved again, circling like a wolf, tightening its grip around its prey. One by one, the remaining soldiers began to falter. Some broke from cover and ran, their courage fully gone, their loyalty discarded. The sniper did not waste bullets on them. They weren't his targets. Fear was doing the work for him. What mattered was the heart of the squad, the one figure who still tried to resist. The commander climbed a rise, his chest heaving with rage and fear, his eyes scanning desperately for a glimpse of his foe. His plasma rifle hummed louder as it built charge for a high-powered shot. "You think yourself a hunter?" he shouted. "You are nothing. I am the end of your kind." Through the sniper scope, the commander's face filled the lens. The alien's eyes glowed with fury, his armor glistening with heat. The sniper adjusted for distance, for the faint sway of the wind, for the tilt of the sun bleeding into horizon. His finger curled gently on the trigger. The shot cracked the silence. The commander's head snapped back as the bullet punched clean through the seam just beneath his helmet. His body staggered, knees buckling, before collapsing in a heap against the rock. The plasma rifle slipped from his claws and clattered uselessly to the ground, its charge fading into silence. The remaining soldiers froze. The death of their commander extinguished whatever fragments of courage they had left. Without him, there was no rallying cry, no direction, only the knowledge that death circled them, patient and unerring. One by one, they scrambled back down the valley, retreating in a desperate scatter, abandoning weapons, abandoning honor, abandoning everything except the instinct to survive. The sniper didn't chase. He tracked them through the scope, watching their terrified flight, but his finger eased away from the trigger. The lesson was already written in their retreat, carved into their memory more deeply than any bullet wound. Let them live. Let them carry the story. Fear would travel faster than any weapon, echo louder than any gunshot. Across the stars, the tale would spread, that the human sniper was no soldier with a relic, but a hunter whose patience made entire armies break. As the valley fell silent again, the sniper withdrew from his position. He moved like a shadow, each step blending into fading light, leaving no trace of where he'd been. Behind him, the battlefield was littered with shattered armor and broken pride. Ahead of him, the mountains stretched endlessly, his ally, his cover, his home. He did not smile, did not revel in the victory. This was not triumph. It was inevitability. Those who had mocked the rifle now understood. Those who had dismissed the silence now feared it. And those who survived would carry the truth to every corner of the galaxy. They had come to the valley laughing. They left it running. The sniper vanished into the rocks, his rifle resting easy against his shoulder, the last light of the sun glinting briefly against its scope. The silence returned, vast and unbroken, but its weight was different now. It was not the silence of waiting. It was the silence of dominance. And in that silence, the galaxy had learned to fear the hunter.